Welcome to MMO Grinder's Sidequest, where I take a look at early open or closed betas, subscription trials, and simpler titles, giving you a quick first impression. Today I'll be looking at ARMS, Nintendo's oddly hard-to-describe 3D arena fighter with a very distinct style, but more methodical timing-based gameplay than its art style would suggest. ARMS is currently running a global test punch, much in the vein of Splatoon 2's global test fire, tossing us into 1-hour blocks split 6 hours apart, running until May 28th, then taking a slight break before starting up another block on June 2nd through 4th, and officially launching the game on June 16th of this year. Now, had I written up and made this video after my first playthrough in the test that I live-streamed, it may have turned out far differently. My first impressions were not kind, but in coming back to another round of the test for the simple purpose of capturing footage, something happened. I got better, which might have something more to do with my choice of control scheme and more in-depth understanding of the game, but let's get into it. This game's graphics are probably its biggest selling point. It's not that you'll be blown away by its realism, this is Nintendo we're talking about here, but because it's Nintendo, the style is off the charts. The colors are very bright and vibrant with flashy effects and fantastic use of contrast, and the unique looks of each character may give Overwatch a run for its money. Once you get around the weird springy extendo-arm aesthetic and the generic superhero boxer look of Springman, it might drag you into its world and make you want to know more about these characters. The music is pretty damn catchy. The main theme is a high-energy and jazzy tune with some backing vocals, but since my YouTube version of the stream was copyright flagged for having it play in the background, you'll just be hearing my show's theme. That is, unless you're watching this on VidMe, where I'm using the game's main theme, so if you're on YouTube and you want to hear that version, head on over to vid.me/MMOGrinder to find the unedited version there. Music also follows the theming of each character's stage, with the Japanese-inspired track for Ninjara's stage, some sci-fi synthesizers for Helix's lab, and some steel drum-backed calypso music for the beach volleyball stage. The sounds are also that wacky kind of impactful, but they are intense to match the action. Here's an odd thing about this game, though. The action look and action style doesn't really reflect just how the game plays. You might go in, motion controls in hand, ready to flail around and toss in some quick hits in what you might expect is just Wii boxing with a theme, but it's really not gonna help you out. The art and action style wants you to think that it's a sports/boxing game when it's more in line with, like, a tank game. You're not ducking and weaving to close the distance when there's an opening, you're steering and aiming your shots with proper timing. You're not throwing punches, you're firing missiles attached to your torso, sometimes literally. Blocking and throwing may be a mechanic, but the game far more relies on understanding what punch to throw, and when, and knowing the strengths and weaknesses of each one. Each character has a distinct move and playstyle passive, as well as moves that aren't clearly illustrated in the tutorial, that you might not even know about unless you read their bios. Like, you can hold the dash button to charge up your punches and do extra damage or abilities. Ribbon Girl has a double jump and dive attacks. Master Mummy can block to heal. Each character also has a set of gloves to choose from that have different weights and playstyles, like the long-range dragon cannons of Min Min and Helix, or the fidget spinner-looking boomerang-style gloves of Springman. You can assign a different glove to your right and left hand to better counter certain opponents, or just better fit your personal playstyle. A lot of this game's strategy can rely on your choice of glove. The game very much brags about its thumbs-up control style, using both Joy-Cons to admittedly interesting effect. Hold the controller in each hand, thumb on the L and R button of each, tilting left and right to move around the arena, tilting both Joy-Cons inward to block, pressing L to dash and R to jump, and you can toss out a punch by punching forward, which you're also able to steer mid-flight by tilting the controller. However, just like this game's aesthetic, this control scheme betrays what the game's really about, as even the slightest push forward will launch a punch, possibly unintentionally, and throwing punches isn't the level of response and accuracy you'd need when, again, you're really just firing shots. Most of my initial issues with this game likely led to this control style, as it doesn't feel very immersive, feels more like you're piloting a mech, and again, it leaves you thinking boxing game when that's not the right mindset to have. So going back to this game to capture footage, I figured I'd just use the Pro Controller instead of detaching the Joy-Cons again, and holy crap does it make a huge difference. Using the triggers to fire your punches is the kind of response I was looking for, and you can even use A and B if that's your prerogative. Jump and dash gets tossed to X and Y, and it's far easier to maneuver with the left stick and change targets with the right, in the event that you're going up against multiple opponents. Motion controls do allow a bit better control over steering individual punches, blocking, or combining jumps and dashes, but I far prefer the Pro Controller for this game, especially considering how the motion setup maps target switching. Yeah, this isn't exactly a one-on-one fighter, but one-on-one fighting does exist, and I'll admit it does feel like the best mode. You face off against your opponent in an even match, taking advantage of power-ups like health or power-boosting fields, or the occasional bomb that'll drop onto the arena that you can punch towards your opponent. Once someone's HP is down, they lose. Rounds are one and done. Fighting can be mixed up with the very polarizing Battle Royale modes, coming in 3 or 4 player flavor, where cowards and opportunists thrive, and it's not uncommon for one fighter to hide in a corner seeking pot shots while the other two are duking it out. But it's also not something that too many people are taking kindly to. The last player standing wins. The final fighting mode is a 2v2, where teams are literally tethered to each other, giving throws a major advantage since tossing one opponent will also take their partner for a ride and damage them as well. Tossed rather oddly into the mix is a volleyball mode, which is simple to understand but far less thrilling to play. A ball spawns over a net and you take turns punching it until someone drops it. You can use the throw move to set the ball, causing it to spin in midair, and then hit it with a punch to spike it. It's a very simple mode and honestly not all that in-depth compared to the layers of nuance involved with the fighting. It's available in 2v2 as well, where it can get a lot more intense, and it does have me curious if more modes will be made available. Now I'm just kind of meh whenever it pops up. I'm not sure if Nintendo plans on keeping the quick play lobbies the way they're going in this test, but you get tossed into a room as a floating icon with several other floating icons, and then get randomly grouped together in one of the aforementioned modes. It's a nice touch to see the fights going on in semi-real time, as the icons and match groups will display their happenings live, like their health remaining or their score in volleyball. But beyond that, there's little to do but play jaunty tunes by pressing buttons. Interestingly, provided you have a few friends that don't require a login password, you can queue with a real-life friend in local co-op to play in quick matches with 2 players. This assures that you'll be 2 of the slots in a battle royale, or always partnered in 2v2 matches, but if you're chosen for a 1v1 mode, one of you will have to sit it out. I can already tell there's a fanbase forming for this game. The character designs alone were enough to build hype before most people knew anything about how the game worked, and despite the lukewarm impressions I and a few friends had initially, we found we tended to be in a major minority, making us wonder just what it was we weren't getting, and somehow through additional sessions, we found out. ARMS is looking to retail at $60, which is still a bit of a barrier for me on a game that's based mostly on multiplayer, and I don't believe there'll be quite the robust set of tasks for solo players that Splatoon 2 seems to be offering. But I'm far more interested in getting this game now. And it's interesting seeing Nintendo tackle new IPs again, instead of relying on the Mario, Zelda, Pokemon trinity, even if this all could end up feeling like Nintendo's version of For Honor. This has been an MMO Grinder Sidequest, and it's time I logged out.